Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Aditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om peace, peace, peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, make it so. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning talk. The subject this morning is purification. It's the first of 3 integrated talks. Next week, we'll talk about revelation. When we are sufficiently purified, revelation takes place. And when we are subject to sufficient revelation of the truth of our being, salvation takes place. And so those are the talks for the next 3 weeks. This week, purification. Next week, revelation. 3rd week, salvation. So, again, welcome this morning to this talk. As I said, Cindy will read something for us that will introduce this talk. It's the paragraph that ran in the newsletter. So some of you may have already read it. Cindy?
Okay. Purification is a much misunderstood word in this context. It does not mean finding a spiritual scrub brush and whisking your sins away. Leave that to the avatars, which is why they come, as Sri Krishna explains in the Gita. No, purification is a process that begins automatically and spontaneously at your birth and continues as long as you live.
Thank you, Cindy. As most of us know, Sri Krishna says in the Gita that whenever vice prevails and virtue declines, I shall make a body and come among you to restore righteousness, to wipe away your sins, and to offer you liberation or salvation. So this is the job of the avatar. Do we have a job of purification? Well, we can take that on as spiritual aspirants. But as was said in that opening paragraph, it begins the moment you're born. You were created in this universe out of the stardust of Maya. And so you are not, and none of us are, not any of the saints, with the exception of the avatars and their Ishvara Kotis, the ever-free souls. There are no perfect beings. So we require purification. Now, as I said, you will experience this whether you make an effort or not. But if you make an effort, if you make a determined and intentional effort, you can accelerate the process. And this is what's meant by spiritual practice. The truth of our being is not the external stardust of Maya. It is in a deep, deep sense, but that's way down the line. It's called Vijnana, the special knowledge of Sri Ramakrishna, that all is the divine being. But as I say, in the beginning, we have to separate the idea of phenomenal being from divine being. And this is this process of spiritual practice. So we begin our spiritual practice with the idea that there is something more to life than this phenomenal existence. We may refer to it in a number of ways. Generically, we can say it is a thou. There is I, the phenomenal being, and there is thou. Thou is referred to as Saguna Brahman, Saguna Atman, the Atman or Brahman with the attributes of divine being. There is phenomenal being, and then there is divine being. And it is the divine being that we find when we turn within and begin the deliberate process of purifying our vision, purifying our aspirations, and purifying the outcomes that are the result of purifying our intentions and our aspirations. So having said all that, and please, if there's anything at all that you would like to contribute from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that you have, please bring it up before we move along, because this is a pivot point in the talk. And so if there's something you would like to say, please do say it.
May I share one thought?
Of course, Uma. We would.
Our physical development, our body, our limbs, and everything develops in time. It's a process that begins from birth. A child, a baby grows into a toddler into a 2 or 3-year-old school-going child. So there are stages of physical development, physical and mental, hopefully. But for growing what you are talking about, spiritual growing, one has to make conscious effort. Very few cases, like Sri Krishna or other people we can relate to, like Gandhiji, they have some kind of inborn instinct towards spiritual growth. But most of us, like you say, have to put in effort. And spirituality, spiritual development is not automatic. That's what I mean to say. One has to pursue certain spiritual thoughts and practices, like meditation, like listening satsanga, company of the learned. And so this is a self-conscious interest in one's own consciousness. And that puts it on a different level than automatic physical development. That's what I wanted to share.
Well, thank you very much, Uma, and all of what you say is true. I will add about Sri Ramakrishna that even Sri Ramakrishna had a period of sadhana, a period of, depending on who's counting, somewhere between 5 and 7 or 12 years, depending on which parts you count. But he was born, as you said, with this inclination. He and all of his, what he called band of minstrels, were born with this inclination towards spiritual development and spiritual growth and selfless service. Because, as I said, these avatars come for no other reason whatsoever. They have no personal motivation. They have no personal gratification. It is simply an act of service that they come to restore righteousness, to wipe away the sin of the sinner, and make it possible for that individual to attain liberation. Sri Ramakrishna came to unchain us and set us free. This is what Vivekananda writes in Breaker of This World's Chain. And there is there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's the same reason that Sri Chaitanya came. It's the same reason that Lord Jesus Christ came. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you. All wisdom, all knowledge, all that was hidden will be revealed. Those who drink from my mouth shall not taste death. These are statements of Lord Jesus Christ. So each of the avatars, including Sri Ramakrishna, came with that specific idea in mind. And Sri Ramakrishna extends his hand to each of us. He and Holy Mother extend their hands to us and say, accept my invitation, and I will see to it that you receive the instruction necessary to do your intentional and determined spiritual work that will ready you for liberation. So this is a very important point that Uma brings up about the fact that, there's nothing automatic about it, not even for the avatars. It may be more automatic for them, but the purification is automatic for us. The purification starts at birth simply because, as I said, you were born of Maya's stardust as an imperfect being with the destiny of perfection, or as close to it as is necessary for your liberation. So thank you, Uma. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
Namaste, everyone, and to you. I just have I want to add to both of your wisdom with personal experience. As much as it starts at birth, it continues that process. Like adversities even purify our hearts, purify our lives. At that time of the adversity, we may not realize, but later on, when we look back, that is a part of my purification process of my heart. That's how I am thinking. That is how it adds. And slowly through meditation and other means with gurus and everybody, we realize what happened, like a house fire or a flood to the house or whatever happened, that was all to purify us. That's how I think. Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. If you remember the story of Aldous Huxley, Aldous Huxley was was a disciple of Swami Prabhavananda. Now, Aldous Huxley had in his house a trove of historical documents from his own family. He came from a very famous family, and from his own researches and writings and so on. And at one point, this lovely home of his in one of the canyons of Los Angeles burnt to the ground. There was nothing left but ashes, a few, metal and ceramic trinkets, things that were just household items. Well, of course, Swami Prabhavananda empathized with him, and Huxley said, Swami, oddly, I feel free. I feel free. And so this is a true story, as it was told to me, of Aldous Huxley. I never knew him, but he was Swami Prabhavananda's disciple. And this is the story that was told. So as you said, Haima, these things that come to us as adversity, they're meant to free us from attachment and aversion. Thank you.
It's an easy way of doing karma yoga, Brother Shankara. You don't get attached to anything. When you have a fire, you lose everything. When you have a flood or a war, you lose everything and left with nothing. And that's a karma yoga is right there stepping in. And we realize how temporary our lives are, how momentary it is.
It's very hard for us to be to say these things, though, to people who aren't following a spiritual path. They will feel a sense of great loss.
Yes. Oh, yes. At the time, it's heartbreaking, but slowly, we realize this God is doing for us.
Very, very difficult.
To liberate us. Thank you so much.
But you're right. It is, whether intentionally or not, it is karma yoga. So anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, this is Sunil. I am totally in agreement what you guys have shared, that wisdom. Absolutely. One thing which from my personal story, it reminds me, I believe Joseph Campbell said in everybody's life that adversity point, or he called it, I think, point of inflection comes. At that point of time, your spiritual progress or consciousness suddenly shoots up. And to me, it sounds like what St. John of Cross said, that is the dark night of the soul. When I start realizing myself, all my past beliefs and all my, whatever I used to think is right, is no more serving in my life. I have to change my belief system. I have to, and how do I change that? To look at the God, that is what it is. And just wanted to share, this is my personal story and I have gone through that.
Well, thank you, Sunil, for sharing that, and for being open and vulnerable with us in this way. Yes, indeed. It calls into question everything, and it causes us to reconvene our way of being and thinking. And when we're fortunate, it is reconvened around spiritual principles and leads further into this purification and this ability to ultimately be set free. Anything else from anyone? Wonderful, thank you.
One additional thought, and then shut up. When adversity strikes out of nowhere. Say it's a car accident
Mhm.
or news of your death of your beloved. It may be family member, your child, your friend, or any kind of unforeseen. At that time, what sustains you, what we are talking about here, is possible, I think, only if you have deep, immovable faith. What one of our ancient Gujarati poets said, put it this way: whatever happens, what we call good, bad, positive, negative, painful or joyful, everything is because God wills it. And if you understand that these are, either you can take it practically or spiritually, that this has some lesson for me. This thing, nothing happens. My aunt, she always said, nothing happens for no reason. There is some message, some lesson to learn from whatever pleasureful or painful thing happens. That faith should be there.
Oh, yes. Shraddha,
Shraddha.
that courage and determination in the face of all adversity, joyfulness. This must be there. But it is hard won.
Yeah.
It is hard won. It is not something that just comes over the transom. We find ourselves very joyfully experiencing Shraddha after years of spiritual practice.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean, as you say, when a car accident or something happens, that we don't go through all that we go through to restore our lives to some semblance of normal activity. This has been the experience from here since last June. So, and I'm so joyous that we're having some of normal activity, these talks and classes and so on, even though they're done on Zoom. It's good that they're done on Zoom. So anything else from anyone?
Brother Gaurav here.
Yes, Gaurav.
Well, I like to wish everybody happy Diwali and happy Kali Puja. It's Joy Ma Kali today. Worship's going on at this point of time, I believe. Yeah, one of the things that I feel is there's a time for everything. Like, it's not that you sit and start spiritual practices expecting that you're going to go ahead, or it's rather an inclination that you have from within that makes you sit and makes you pursue the divine. So only then you have the bhakti in your practices. Without that, it's like it's not a mechanical thing. I'm just going to sit in front of a shrine or and I'm going to start meditating. There has to be that pull from within.
Well, as the Holy Mother says, it's better to do it mechanically than not do it at all. But as you know, whether you jump in the pool or into the pond or pushed, you'll get wet. And so it's good even to do it mechanically. But you're right; it's far better if you have the inclination but if even on those days when
Yes.
you don't feel any inclination, it's better not to miss that day. Better to go ahead, even if it's mechanical. Yada 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 yada.
But then again, like I've come across many people who believe that, okay, if I do this puja, I'm going to be blessed with this. That's it. Means there is no connection. Means they don't believe that, hey, means I got to go there, like I do nothing. Means I have to have the bhakti somewhere within me.
Well, they
It's
wouldn't.
fish, like, okay, I do this, I get this. So if I perform Kali Puja, I'm going to become somebody huge or something. Means
Well,
that
people have all kinds of ideas, and some of them are more accurate than others. Let them believe what they want to believe. Don't try to correct them. Let them, if it's
yes. No, I don't try to do anything. I let them do whatever they want.
then it'll be folly. But it's better to do something than nothing in a spiritual sense, even if it's misguided.
Okay.
The correction will come.
Means the Supreme Being is so benevolent that it will bestow some grace on you no matter what you're going. That is so beautiful. Yes.
And that is the bhakti that we're talking. That
Yes.
belief that the divine being is inherently benevolent
Yes.
and
Yes.
will offer us. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Anything else from anyone? All right. When we begin to sense that there is this greater presence than our stardust spacesuit, and we begin to sense that what we experience, both positive and negative, is coming from that and not from within ourselves. Yes, we cooperate with it, but somehow it is coming from outside. And we begin to get this sense that there is this benevolence. Then we begin a very deliberate process of purification. We may not think of it that way. We may just think, I need to get my house in order here. Well, that is indeed a kind of purification. Getting your house in order is a kind of purification. For anyone who's done it, they know exactly what I mean. So we begin to practice spiritual disciplines, some sort of mantra, some sort of visualization. It might even be as a whirling dervish. Whatever it is, the point is to draw our attention inward to that divine being that is at the center of us, which we call Atman, Saguna Atman. Atman with the attributes, the divine attributes of love and compassion and service to others. And so as we move into that frame of reference and we turn away from the outside world and spend more and more time attentively with the inside world, and it doesn't need to be sitting on a cushion every minute. The inside world is reflected in our actions and in what we experience in the outside world as well when we come to understand it. This is what Sri Krishna calls that vijnana. It's all in one way or another. And we first come to understand this very partially, but it's all the divine being at work. So we begin to think of it in a specific way, and then it becomes more and more general. The more general it becomes, the more purifying it becomes, because everything then becomes part of this great divine presence. So we sit, we observe, and we sink into a kind of silence, even if we're just not on the cushion, even if we're just outside listening as we start our period of being outside, just listening to the birds, listening to the squirrels chatter to one another. But we observe, we observe. And this is many of the great saints have learned their lessons of spirituality directly from nature. So this observing, what is it that's going on? What is meant by the saints when they say that all of this is perfection? All of it is perfect. We know that perfection is not a word that's used ordinarily. So we look into this, whether we're sitting on a cushion and chanting a mantra, or visualizing our guru, or whether we're just observing the wonders of nature. More and more, our thoughts, and therefore our speech and our actions, become pure. As Sri Krishna said to Kali, I think as you would have me think. Therefore I speak as you would have me speak. And therefore I act as you would have me act. And so we can think that every action that Sri Krishna performed was an action of the divine being as mother, as Kali. Gaurav pointed out that today is a day that is special to the worship of Kali. Well, this happens, there's a lot of different worships of Kali for a very good reason. So we move along, and as we do, we are transformed. We are no longer that which started this process. And if we pursue this for 4 or 5 years and look backward at what it was that began the process and what you have become, it will be sometimes you will find yourselves purely astounded. You really are no longer attracted to the things that you were attracted to. You really are no longer attached to the things that seem so very important. You are no longer averse to certain things that you found so abhorrent. So this is the process of purification. Anything else? Anything from anyone about any of that?
Brother Shankara, I have a, what shall I say, a puzzling question.
Yes, dear.
How do we differentiate between psychological purification or psychological improvement, whatever word we want to give, and spiritual internal process of purification? Don't they sometimes interfere interconnect?
Well,
Psychological
it's a
versus spiritual.
spectrum, isn't it? It's a spectrum. We're not one being cut into pieces. We are one being that we see in different ways. We see mind, intellect, psyche. So we say psychological, so we say spiritual. But in fact, they're not separate. So purification of the psychological aspects of ourselves, which is tremendously important, because we're raised in a culture that miseducates us about what the proper values of life are.
Right, right.
So when we come to a more balanced and more auspicious way of being psychologically, those false values, we've made a great improvement, a great purification. That frees us spiritually. We're no longer dedicating energy trying to figure these things out. They become self-evident. This is one of the things that is so true of spiritual life, that as we pursue it spontaneously and automatically, some very important things become self-evident. They become self-evident because we recognize them in ourselves. We experience them. The truth of the Atma, for example. If you pursue spiritual practice, you learn after a time, you discover, you uncover. This is what is meant by the Atma. This is the witness presence that has all of these wonderful attributes, but does not participate in any action.
So does it mean that values, moral values are essential part of spiritual growth? As Gandhiji said, morality is the basis of spiritual life.
Well, we cannot pursue spiritual life if we're pursuing immorality, can we? No. So we must indeed think in terms of our moral imperatives. But as I said, spontaneously and automatically, these things become self-evident to us.
Right.
We don't have to struggle with it. As Swami Shivananda said, as a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he said, here's the great secret. Just put God at the center of everything. And then you don't have to struggle with any moral questions. You don't have to struggle to be good or do good. It just automatically and spontaneously happens. This is an accurate paraphrase of what he said. And he was speaking directly from his experience of Sri Ramakrishna and the life that they lived together.
Thank you.
Sri Ramakrishna did not have to think about doing or being good. It simply was completely spontaneous in his presence. And this is true of all the avatars, as was pointed out earlier. It's true of all of the avatars. And their apostles. When you're in their presence, you feel it. When you're in the presence of a Ramakrishna or a nun or Swami, Vrajaprana is coming December 2nd and 3rd. Please do plan to make time to be with her. Swami Satyamayananda, the head of the Ramakrishna mission Center in Seattle, Washington, is coming December 6th and 7th. Again, make time to be in his presence. You will feel the truth of what I'm saying. They don't have to think about doing and being good, about being serviceful. It simply flows from them. Flows from them like honey from a honeycomb. One of the phrases, poke the honeycomb. Give each of those sadhus, sadhanis a poke and see what happens. See what flows forth. Oh, you will be so gratified. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Bhagirath.
the most essential, the most challenging, the most difficult process is to separate the body from Atman.
Yes.
Because we are identifying with the body. When I say body, it includes life, it includes mind, it includes your sense of morality, whatever you say. We become a part of it. And the spiritual practice tries to draw a plane of cleavage that is body, that is mind, that is just life, and stay away from it so that you can observe yourself. When you learn how to observe yourself, you'll stop observing others because you will see the identity of everywhere. That part is the most difficult. If you cannot watch a doctor drawing the blood from you, because most of the people, they have to cover their eyes when that happens. So much of identification with the needle, body, and your blood. Instead of that, you watch it. That means some degree of immunity from passion, immunity from identifying the body with the Atman. That perhaps is the first essential and difficult step of purification.
Well, it certainly is an important step. I think myself, Bhagirath, I think the first step is our decision to recognize this thou-ness and then begin to try to understand what it is that is greater than I am. As Swami Sri Dharananda said, we start with the idea I am. After a while, we get the idea there's something greater than this I. There's something greater than this I am. And so we refer to it in somewhat as thou. After a time, he said, the thing flips over and we understand that I am is because thou art. Thou art that which creates I am. And in time, you come to understand there is only thou. There is no separation. So all of this, this beginning, the going from I am to I am and thou art, I think this is an important first step. And this begins, and doesn't even include at that point the idea of purification, just curiosity. What is this? Then we begin to understand, oh, there are these impediments to my understanding what it is. So then we get to the point that you were drawing, and a very important point. Then we begin to deliberately and very creatively find a way to separate the mind and the body from the Atman, from the being within. So thank you, Bhagirath, as always. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
Hari Om. You had shared a very precious statement. The true test of spirituality is the change in my conduct. And that, I believe, says a whole lot of what we were talking about a while ago.
Yes, please explain.
Yes, I was remembering and repeating the statement I received from you that Swami Savahanandaji said, the true test of spirituality is the change in our conduct.
Yes, exactly. The only true measure of spiritual progress is change in behavior. This he would say over and over. Why? Because as we become more pure, naturally, as Uma pointed out and others have pointed out, morality must be we must behave as moral and ethical and serviceful beings. So yes, PJ, absolutely you're right. And thanks for bringing it up again, because it is a very important point. Swami Swahananda said, you would bring him something, some experience you'd had, something that was still glowing in you. And he would say, talk to me about it again in 3 months. The only true measure of spiritual progress is change in behavior. So if what you've experienced results in some changes in your behavior, then you will know that what you experienced was deep and profound. Otherwise, it's just one of those lovely little things that happens, an epiphany, a moment in time. You would call those gifts. You would say, oh, what is...
Thank you.
else from anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Brother Shankara, I just want to add something to all of your wisdoms. It's a calmness to opposition. Umaji was asking psychological growth. Calmness to opposition is one of the growths as we meditate. Saint Francis of Assisi said so wonderfully, where there is hatred, let me so love. That sticks to me well. And make me thy instrument of peace. That is the biggest psychological growth we experience as we move through the journey of meditation and spirituality. And that is the test, litmus test is calmness to opposition. One of the Swamis said, get a critic into the bedroom and let him sit in the corner, make him hate you and make comments and then see how you handle it. That's your that is your test for your calmness for the opposition. Let him criticize you top to bottom and then see how you have grown. If you can handle that criticism, that means you are growing, you are on the journey. Yeah. Thank you, Brother Shankara. Just wanted to share that.
That's so true, so true.
There was a Swami that used to come and stay at Trabuco, live at Trabuco. He went on to become the head of one of the Northern California centers. Swami Prabhavananda would, because of this fellow's character flaws, He was a Swami, but he wasn't perfect. Swami Prabhavananda at breakfast there at Trabuco would just excoriate him, just lay into him with both hands. And the man at the end of breakfast would just get up and leave the table and walk away. And the Swami Prabhavananda would say, "What shall I do with him? He has no ego."
Ah,
He had other flaws. Primarily, he was a little sharp-edged. A little anger was still there. But he wouldn't manifest that in response to the Swami. So what shall I do with him? He has no ego. These are wonderful stories for us to remember, because these Swamis go on to be our instructors. And as they are perfected, they're able to help us be more pure and more appropriate and auspicious. Anything else from anyone?
Brother, this is Fred.
Yes, Fred.
Namaste, and hello to everybody in the class.
fine.
Your last story reminds me of something I heard recently, where the difference between I guess your comment on this, the difference between a saint and a liberated one, you know, they might be the same, but and the saint has the ultimate behaviors of the group and is considered perfect in his behavior, whereas the liberated one has freedom, which means basically the dropping of the ego. You know, that ego always remains some, right? But there's always a hint of it. Didn't know if you liked that or not, but I just thought I'd throw that out.
Well, what you've said is so very important. The saint will behave, by and large, in ways that are recognizable and responsive to the situation as it arises in front of whoever's present. The liberated one is, we don't understand their actions at all, oftentimes. They may behave in ways that seem totally inappropriate, even inauspicious. This is what we're told. So much easier to be much. You need to mute yourself. Much easier to be in the company of saints than liberated ones, as a general rule. So something further, Fred?
Well, I like what you just said, and I think it goes back to the Bhagarat's comment. And of course, it's all a great mystery. What do I know? But to me, and you and I have talked about this, it's always been about identification. And when the identification changes, many things are cut off at the root. And and that's really all I wanted to say. And I appreciate everyone's comments and all stories.
Yes, and we must be careful about saying, I don't know anything, because if we really didn't know anything, we wouldn't be able to speak. So we do know some things, and it's important for us to keep our attention on the fact that those things that we do know, because it's from there that we grow and we learn more. How are we doing for time? What time is it?
It's Shankara, it's 11:53. This is Tom. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, I just got a text from Jyoti. She's having connection problems, asking me to make this announcement. I'll just read what she said. Hi, I'm driving and couldn't stay connected. Would you announce about the nuns visit the first weekend in December? So if anybody doesn't know, I can't remember the nun's name, but she's going to be here the first weekend in December. On Saturday night, she will give a talk, and there will be a potluck. And anyway, just know that the first week in December, a nun's coming. She's been here before. I can't remember her name.
Yes.
And all the details will be in the newsletter.
Okay, well, it was announced earlier. But
Oh,
with
okay.
some of those details. The nun's name is Vrajaprana. She's from the Santa Barbara Convent of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, and is well worth your time. And yes, come to the potluck, come to her talks and her when she's here on December 2nd and 3rd. Thank you, Jyoti, for getting in touch with Tom and bringing that forward. That's good. Anything else from anyone before we close up? All right. As I said, purification is spontaneous and automatic from the moment of your birth. So whether you actively participate or not, it is going on because it is part of the process of universe to purify itself. Otherwise, if it remained impure, it would never come to stillness. And we're told that universe has these periods of activity, the day of Brahma, and then it's an equal period of stillness, the night of Brahma. And Swami Vivekananda explains this by saying, in the active part, the gunas are out of equilibrium. So they're constantly creating in conflict and cooperation with one another. They're constantly creating. But slowly and slowly over time, that begins to ebb. And we're talking billions of years here. And finally, the three gunas are once again in equilibrium. They're no longer in conflict or cooperation to create anything. And so there's this long period of stillness. And this period of activity is purification, where they become purer and purer, less and less likely to be in conflict or cooperation. And so this is the way Vivekananda explains how we see this great play of universe, this great Leela of universe, the Lord's, the divine being's play. We, as I said, we're part of this inextricably. We are what is manifesting universe. There is no universe without our manifestation. Collectively, each of us, as Vivekananda says, has our own universe, which when our thoughts are stilled, this he says in his introduction to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, when your thoughts become perfectly still, when there are no more vrittis, no more whirlpools of thought within the mind stuff, the citta, when there are no more vrittis in the citta, your universe disappears. The universe that we manifest collectively, of course, does not. but your universe disappears. That is to say, you disappear from manifestation. And this is one of the definitions of samadhi. So we're all headed that direction. We're all moving that way. And as Sri Ramakrishna says, and it's so heartfelt the way he expresses it, because he wants to reassure people who are worried, concerned that they're not doing the right thing, they're not on the right spiritual path and so on. What he says, with great conviction, with great love and empathy, everything happens at exactly the right time. Everything happens at exactly the right time. So this is how we can feel for ourselves. Everything will happen at exactly the right time. Any comment or concern or question about any of those last remarks? All right, dears. I think it's probably the hour. Isn't it? What time
Yeah.
is it?
Yes, brother. It's 1 after 12.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And brother, just to tag on to the purification aspect, like Vivekananda said in his writing that we are all Christ in waiting,
Oh, yes.
and he kind of explains in one of his volumes a scientific way of how we attain that. Like in energy bands, you take birth and then you get better and better, and then you finally escape the cycle of life. And
Yes.
yes, like in chemistry, you would go in subatomic particles, like an electron shoots out of a
Yes.
atom. So yeah,
He prophesied quantum physics. But it's interesting you mentioned that we're all Christs in waiting. This is in his lecture, which I strongly recommend that each of you read. It's called Christ the Messenger. It was delivered in Pasadena, California in January of 1900. And it is so powerful about how each of us is on a path, however long it may seem to us. In the billions of years of the day of Brahma, it's not that long. Each of us is on a path to Christhood, to manifesting the Christ principle or Buddha nature. So let that be a sweet little thought for signing off. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may the divine being that is introduced in the prayer that opens our sessions, may that divine being be known to hold us in a secure and loving embrace. Whether we feel it or not at any moment or not, this is what's understood. And this is what will be told to us by the great teachers and by their apostles. We are in the loving and protective embrace of the divine being. So there's nothing for us to fear, nothing for us to worry about, even though there may be painful moments as well as joyful moments. Nothing to fear or worry about. So until Tuesday, for those of you who decide to join us for the gospel class, and please do be mindful what's coming in the newsletter about the classes and also about the visiting Pravrajika, Vajraprana, and the Swami Satyamayananda. all
Shankara,
that. Yes, dear.
just a quick Save a Saturday will be this Saturday. And Jillian and I will be making a lovely homemade lunch for anyone who can come help get the center ready for the Pravrajika's visit.
Well, what a special day that will be. How grand. All right, dear. Well, thanks for the announcement. All right, dears. Anything else from anyone before we go? Thank you, Jyotima.
Thanks to everybody.
All right, Lori. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Thank you, brother. Jai Ma.